In this spaghetti western, we're going to take a look at the Ducati Scrambler, Italian-made motorcycle. This model is called the Urban Enduro. And I know what you're thinking. Urban Enduro is an oxymoron. But I don't think it's nice you laughing. You see, my mule don't like people laughing. 'Cause he gets the crazy idea that they're laughing at him. Now if you apologize, like I know you're going to, I might just convince him that you really didn't mean it. Now you can pick up one of these for a fistful of dollars, under 10,000 if you buy it used. And for a few dollars more, you can get yourself some armored gear, which you're gonna need, because dying ain't much of a living, boy. I'll be needing 2 of these mules for Sister Sarah. The Ducati Scrambler was known originally as a single-cylinder dual-sport motorcycle available in the US from 1962 to 1976, or 75, or 74, depending where you get your info. Just like the greatest Western movies ever. What a great time period. It featured a 250cc engine originally, and then moved up to a 450cc. They were great bikes for desert races, but as the mid-1970s approached, the emerging two-strokes and Japanese dirt bikes handled better and were faster. Sales dwindled, so Ducati stopped production on the Scramblers. Well, the American motorcycle market is predominantly made up of us old guys, and we love toys and movies that are reborn in the styles we grew up with. Now, if you can find a vehicle style that appeals to both an old crowd and a young crowd that embraces a style way older than themselves, hipsters, you've got a top seller. So Ducati reintroduced a whole line of Scramblers in 2015, and they did very well. Did they make them for off-road races? Well, not this time, as they really can't compete with true dual sports today. Although the Desert Sled comes close and is rumored to be able to handle jumps. Only the Desert Sled has a frame and suspension to handle anything more than a fire road. This Scrambler, the Urban Enduro, implies that you can ride rough and broken city streets all day long like a gauntlet. But you know, just like almost every other bike can do. I test rode a 2015 before this one that was clearly off-roaded a lot, and it needed too much work for us to buy it. The forks were toast from wheelies or just bottoming out, the exhaust casing was hanging freely and battered like with a ball-peen hammer, and the engine sounded shaken, not stirred. As this one is in fine shape, I'm going to keep it that way. Although this dirt road is too tempting not to tackle. I might just be a high plains drifter. Now for my standard triple cheese BLT review. Now let's take a look at the good, the bad, and the fugly. The tech is moderate, as it features ABS brakes that I haven't figured out yet how to turn off for wheelies. It has a tachometer around the dash bezel. The single instrument cluster, if that makes any kind of sense, will tell you the temperature but not the fuel level? I'd rather know the fuel level. I'm told they added a fuel gauge and gear indicator in 2019. Without any ride modes, I'll have to give the tech a score of 6. The clutch is light to pull. It's a clutch cable and therefore adjustable to a point. Because even at the tightest setting, the friction zone is still a ways out from the bar. The score, I'll give it a 7. It's still very usable. Handling is really nice because it's a small, moderately lightweight bike with wide bars and a rake and trail of about 25 inches each. Although the seat is 31 inches off the ground, it's narrow and it squishes, so even Joe Kid or Joe Mama can ride it. The wide tires give it a very safe feel. I'll score it 8. The engine. Although Scramblers are now available with an 1100cc engine, this one has an 803cc air-cooled V-twin, or better yet L-twin engine. The engine might look familiar to Ducati fans. It's the same engine and transmission as the Ducati Monsters at the time. They are different from other motorcycle engines in that they feature desmodromic valves, originally designed for higher RPMs than valve springs or push rods could achieve. There you go. You learned a new word. Now go tell your spouse not to be as desmodromic as a Western actress.
Wrong side of the road.
The engine pulls nicely with 75 horsepower, but only 50 pounds of torque, so getting the front wheel off the ground still requires popping the clutch. It does 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds, but it also has a lot of engine braking when you let off the throttle. If you have a worn-out suspension, the bike will be a rocking horse. Ducati engines are known to be hot on your legs and expensive to work on also, so my score is 7. Ergonomics, 7. How is it for long days in the saddle? Well, it needs work. I'm beguiled. The seat is soft, but lacks a stationary position. Although ribbed like the outlaw Josie Wales, it is slippery, and textile riding pants will likely slide all over it. The bars may be wider and higher than a cafe bobber, but, and I say this with all disgust for modern motorcycle designers, these bars also need another inch higher for the average American to ride standing up. Come on, Ducati, hang 'em high. Why do all moto designers think we have short legs and 6-foot-long arms? We are not apes, last time I checked. The grips, well, here's the bad. They are painful after a while. They are thin like a ribbed condom, except the ribs feel sharp after a while. On your hands, I mean. I figured I'd better expand on that. Back to standing up while riding. Ducati, what are these tiny, rounded metal shivs under my boots? Are these stilettos? They are barely thicker than a gun barrel, and when they get muddy, any rider that stands up is likely to slip off and become a very pale rider. Come on, Ducati, I need pegs I can trust. Sound. Well, besides the muffler aiming its exhaust right up the pant leg of your passenger, it sounds really nice. Now let's listen to the exhaust. Because every bike, makes its own tune. Although the engine kind of wheezes to life when you start the bike, I'll have to give it a 9. Expense. Considering you can buy these bikes used for as low as $7,000, they are not very expensive. With an 11-to-1 compression ratio, though, you better give it 90 octane gas. The engines are actually pretty reliable, but services can be pricey, so I'll give it an 8. The brakes are Brembo, which are known to be high quality, and ABS comes standard. What more could you ask for? Well, I could ask for them not to be so grabby in the front. Even moderate lever pull is enough to make the mule bow down in front. The front lever is adjustable though, so you can increase that effect if you like it so much. Now if I could just turn off the ABS easily, the rear brake won't let me skid, and it doesn't have much feel. I'll score the brakes with an 8 anyway, because the bike stops very precisely without skidding. And now for looks. Now this is what really sells anything, isn't it? The Urban Enduro was an upsell to the Scrambler icon because it featured a few more suggestive off-road trinkets like wire wheels, a handlebar crossbar brace, fork protectors, a sump guard, a headlight grille, and it came with Pirelli dual sport tires, although the latter are long gone by 5,000 miles. So let's look at this one. From its nod to a 1969 Scrambler gas tank to the ribbed bench seat of most universal Japanese motorcycles of the Nixon and Ford eras, it screams retro. That same retro look and simplicity also scream "Ride Me," which is why my wife wanted it. The headlight has a cool, almost World War II look, but the cage also means getting bugs off won't be easy. I'll give it a 9 for looks, much like the man with no name. The 5-speed transmission is smooth, neutral is easy to find when you want it, but not intrusive when you don't, and the gears are just long enough to be right where you think they would be. It could use a 6th gear for the highway though. My interstate up here often tends to run about 85 miles an hour, and there's a whole lot of shaking going on at that speed. But I will give the transmission an 8 for doing what it's designed to do. Now, something else small to know, it's not even part of the BLT thing. The turn signals have a really short rocker switch. You almost feel that the switch is stuck, compared to nearly every other bike with a rocker switch. Your thumb doesn't hardly seem to go anywhere, but yet the blinkers work fine. That brings us to a score of 77. Now remember, this is not out of 100, because I have yet to find a motorcycle that is 100, and I've ridden over 100 bikes myself. So let's consider we're probably the best bikes out there would rake in the 90s for me. Now if they could have nailed the ergonomics, it would have been much better. And Ducati, for those short, round pegs, you really do stand unforgiven.
That's it for this video. And I'll see you in the next town. The next town is 70 miles. But if you save your breath, I feel a person like you could manage it. You feel lucky? Well, do you, punk? Close enough, I think. Going right up my nose here.